Aaron the Dog back with his first of two breakdowns for the day, the early morning edition of the LFA 126 Brazil Part 2 card, I'm calling it, headlined by two title fights, but Jonas Bilharinho and Rafael Barbosa getting the headline spot. Bonfim brothers on here, a lot of really good Brazil talent throughout this card. Pretty excited to be breaking it down with my LFA co-host himself. You know who he is, Lucky Locks. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. We're getting after it bright and early today.
Yeah, no hats.
Early, so,
no hats.
Yeah, no hats today either.
Either we both wear hats or we don't. We don't even have to let each other know.
Definitely a special episode this morning.
Exactly. But super pumped to be covering this card. They really seem to be delivering with these Brazil cards, only going with the one. Sorry, I was just looking for a marker to make notes of timestamps. 1 second. I'm going to grab that, but I'll grab that in a minute. Either way, I'm pretty pumped about this card. We're going to just be covering the main card, although I do think this is an LFA where it's worth kind of looking top to bottom. It's just that with schedules and everything the way they are, we're going to stick with the main card. But really good main card. And let's just go ahead and jump into it. Definitely. We're doing this in the morning. I'm used to just watching tape and talking to nobody. But speaking of weird decision by LFA to make, and I wonder if this is going to stick by fight night. Sometimes Tapology doesn't always have the exact accurate information, but currently the opener is this bantamweight matchup between Tamaris Vidal and Gabriel Braga. A little bit confused why this would be the opener. To be honest, I get both women are at 5-1. I watched Tamaris Vidal's last fight where she won due to a illegal knee. It was not an illegal knee to a downed opponent. It was an illegal knee to the nether regions, and it was like the third one of the fight. In a fight where she was getting pretty dominated throughout, like ground and pounded, was her only success was leaning against a cage. That's pretty much the only success I've seen in a few of her fights. I was pretty underwhelmed by Tamaris, if I'm being honest here. She does have the 5-1 record. She is only 23 years old, so those are definitely positives there. Before that, went to mostly decisions. She has one Kimura finish of a 0-0 fighter. Really, other than that, just does a lot of kind of striking to get close to make cage pressure, get against the cage, have control in that way. Can work at kind of this level, I think, for quite a while. We saw Gabriel Braga, and I apologize if that's not how you say her name, but we did see her with LFA a couple fights ago. And she was just kind of dominated with grappling and control. She's definitely a stand-up fighter. It was Gabriela Hermogenes, who was 5-1 at the time. She took a fight with a 6-1 Deborah Ferreira with Thunder Fight, which we'll see quite a few fighters coming from tonight. And then took a 0-0 fight, mostly Braga, stand-up kind of kickboxer movement. She's not going to, for the most part, threaten with the power too much. I think if she puts away her opponent, Tamaris, it would have to be with cardio and volume as the fight goes. I have kind of seen Tamaris slow down. I also think Tamaris can easily lean against Braga for 15 minutes and kind of control her that way. So it's not a fight I'm looking to bet on, I'll be honest. And I'm not too impressed with Tamaris, even though she does have the better resume of the two. I've just not seen too much that promise here, but I'll take her as my official pick and by decision.
Yeah, this is it's an interesting fight. Both women obviously have that 5-1 record. It's a 4-fight win streak right now for Vidal. Has that win over Martina Jindrova, just got signed to PFL, which is a nice win, and the one loss came to Carol Hossa in her second pro fight, so not too bad there. She's the 135-pound champ at Samurai Fight House. 4 of her 6 fights have also been at 145.
Right.
So might be a tad bigger here. Has a base in Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. She's a brown belt in Jiu-Jitsu. She has a pretty decent clinch game, like you mentioned, strong body lock, decent takedown defense, and decent get-ups as well. On the ground, she's a pretty good top game, pretty good transition. Seen her be able to take dominant position and get decent ground and pound while posturing up. Braga, on the other hand, exact same record, got a round 1 KO last time out. We saw her in the prelims of LFA 111 last year. That's where she had her only pro loss, and she's won 2 more fights in the meantime. And she has really nice hands, good hand speed, has that base in boxing, and she's able to use that pretty well. I like the way she goes to the body. I like the combinations. Vidal, resume-wise, does look pretty good on paper. You mentioned not quite as impressive when you actually go to the numbers, or go to the tape, but still some pretty decent wins on there. Has a win over Jindrova, which I feel like has aged well, and I think that her grappling game is going to be what wins her this fight on Friday. So I'm going to go with Tamires Vidal as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely nervous about the weight cut, 135 with her kind of gas. And I mean, that last fight that won her the Samurai Championship, she was losing most of it. She turned her head to get a back of the head shot at one point, which they stopped it. Her opponent thought she had won at the end there too. It was really an awkward finish. I highly recommend going, and if you are kind of wanting to check out a fight and have 15 minutes, it's a really weird fight. And just, yeah, I'm not super confident in this pick, but I was kind of glad to see the odds. I anticipated the odds were going to be pretty with Vidal based on just the resume there and just the familiarity with Braga, but Vidal only a slight favorite, minus 130. I honestly would take a shot depending on how she looks at weigh-ins. I want to make sure that she looks like she's in. But 23 years old, she's going to be the one improving here versus the 34, nearly 35 Braga, and all of that. But that being said, I mean, this is Vidal was gassing at 145, 135 could be quite a bit for her too. So, yeah, that should be it's actually a good fight. I kind of hated on a little bit too much just based on the previous fight there. But yeah, we got 2 Bragas on this fight, 2 Bonfims, and the Bragas are going back to back just like the Bonfims. This fight is a fantastic fight between Gabriel Braga and Jose Delano, I believe is how you say his last name. It may be Delano. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing a last name. Won't be the first time or last time. But yeah, this is a really good fight here. Very different kind of fighters here. So again, we've kind of got 2 interesting, slightly polar opposite matchups to start out the main card here. But Jose Delano, definitely much more the grappler of the 2 of these fighters out of Brazilian top team. Sorry, my computer, of course, is having some difficulties this morning. So 1 second. But we're familiar with Gabriel. I'll go start with Gabriel Braga, who we are familiar with from LFA, still very young, 23 years old, very good Muay Thai fighter. Had an impressive finish in his LFA debut with knees and then finished with the ground and pound. He just looks to be very, very well polished for such a young age. And yeah, sorry, my computer is completely bugging out on me, so that's a little bit annoying. But either way, with Braga, he hasn't been too tested yet in his career. It's a little bit one of my concerns is how he's going to deal with the grappling in this fight of Delano. Delano is a very legitimate BJJ practitioner. He's been in there with guys, really good guys at points on the jiu-jitsu scene. And he also is like in his fights, from what I've seen, only gotten to see a couple fights, but really exciting. He takes a little bit too many shots, so that's definitely a concern, but he kind of toughs through it, tries to get, he will throw back himself. And if he can get this to the ground into the grappling, that's going to be his world for sure. But Jose Delano finally looks like the computer's back working a little bit. 9-2 here, 8 straight wins for him. So you definitely love to see that. Started out his career 1-2, and I just think that's a good sign of kind of some mental tenacity, able to fight back from some adversity himself. the fight I was able to see, it was a very, very solid back and forth. Yeah, and then visceral feedback winnings exactly. But yeah, no, either way, sorry for it's just throwing me off here for a second. But yeah, you've seen with Delano, he has faced some good competition. Luciano Menecio in his last fight wasn't able to see the tape. It was in November of 2020. He was 14-4, went to the decision. I see a lot of submissions on his record, and I just think that with Braga, he definitely is going to start out the fight strong. I'm going to be interested to see how Delano is able to respond to kind of the long strikes and to the diverse strikes of Braga. I'm a little concerned that he's only 6-0 at this point and hasn't faced a lot of adversity, but I mean that's also a result of just really solid fights. He had a really good fight his last time out as well. As I said with LFA. So, what are your kind of thoughts on this fight? And then I'll give my prediction on who I see winning. But I'm just curious your thoughts.
Yeah, this is a matchup that I'm really looking forward to. Braga, we last saw him on the prelims, LFA 112, got a KO there, and you mentioned it, 23 years old, still very young, 6-0. I feel like the competition has been pretty solid for your first 6 fights, and he's definitely a well thought of prospect at the featherweight division in Brazil. I think this is going to be probably his toughest matchup to date. But the guy has really good angles in there with the stand up. You mentioned he's a good Muay Thai guy. His combinations are pretty sharp. I like that. I like the way he's willing to go to the body, and the output, the volume is good, and he definitely has that Muay Thai base. He uses all of the 8 limbs. Elbows and knees are both included. Good low kicks. The teep kicks up the middle are good, and I like the footwork as well. And he's also a pretty decent grappler as well. He's got a good top game. He's got heavy ground and pound. And then we have Delano is going to be standing across the cage from him. He's the Shuto 145-pound champion, and he is on an 8-fight win streak. But honestly, I don't feel like too many of his other fights were really that high level. I mean, he's fighting guys like 6-12, 4-4, 0-3, some decent guys in there as well. And definitely in his last fight, that was a tough opponent there and a good win. 67% finish rate for him, and he's pretty well rounded. He's serviceable in the striking, a good ground game, advances on top, and he's definitely proven to be a submission threat. He has 4 of those and 9 wins. But I think Braga is a good prospect, and I could 100% see him signing with a big organization after another few fights. I feel like he is on that path at the moment. I feel like that's his trajectory. This is going to be a tough test. I feel like he is up to the challenge here. I think he has something special. I'm going with Braga to get the win in this one.
Yeah, no, honestly, I got a little thrown off by my computer there, but yeah, I kind of had it mixed up completely there. While Jose does have the experience, it's against much lower levels of competition for the most part. And I mean, he does take quite a bit of damage in his fights, even in one of his early fights that I was able to find. I mean, he got a standing guillotine, but he took a lot of shots from that opponent. It was a Muay Thai style striker as well. And I get that was quite a while ago. I see Braga as a legit contender series by the end of the year, to be honest with you. I think that he fights very exciting, and he's very, very well-rounded as well. So I am, going to go with Braga as well. I was a little surprised to see the odds, as I think the odds are about right. Maybe they're a little bit closer than I was expecting, -175, +145 on Jose Delano. I think that it is the question of the grappling. I just don't know how Jose is going to get it down to the floor. His takedowns aren't all that great from what I've seen, and Braga does seem to have a pretty wide base and is going to be the taller and longer opponent. He's going to be striking at distance, I think, for the most part. So, I'm excited to see Braga as well. So apologies for getting thrown off there. Also, just ignore the times that I'm putting into the chat because I don't have my board, so I'm putting the timestamps in the chat. So like a pro here at Aaron the Dog. What can I say? Next fight, though, is at 205. It is a interesting fight. I'm not sure what to exactly think about, particularly Thiago at this point. Now he is Thiago Vieira, that is, taking on Rodolfo Bellato. This is at 205. Thiago Vieira, Monstro, he's fought at 170 before. He's fought at middleweight before in his last fight, and now he's going up to 205. And it's we'll see how he looks out there. He's 11-4 now. He's a very exciting fighter, good striker of 011 MMA fight team. Did win his last fight out in January, so that's good of this year. So got a KO of Carlos Eduardo, who Rodolfo also beat in his last fight. So this is just like you beat Carlos Eduardo, fight each other, I guess. But before that, it is the ground that has been kind of a little bit of a problem for Thiago at points with Pessoa. He got submitted by Rene Pessoa, 18-5 opponent. He got knocked out towards the end of the fight against Grisbeck, 12-3 opponent. So he's facing very good guys. Carlston Harris over with Brave. That was a fight where Carlston just immediately got that body lock on him, took him down, like with very relative ease, and that was at welterweight. And that's kind of one of my big concerns is that Vieira on the feet, he's really great. He, especially early on, good strikes, a lot of first round finishes. You're going to see a few second round finishes, but mostly first round finishes. And that's kind of the thing with Vieira, at least at the lower weight classes. And I know at Rodolfo is going to be training to take him down. That's just what you've got to do with Vieira here. I think if you're Rodolfo, he's going to be the bigger guy here for sure. And I believe this is Vieira's 205 debut, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
I want to say he fought his last
he did
one
fight.
there.
He did fight the last one at 205 as well. So my mistake. But yeah, either way, maybe the move up really does him some good. I mean, he was a gigantic welterweight. I don't know how he was ever making that, and that's probably why he had like 2 minutes of gas. But yeah, Bellato, Team Nogueira here, fought an LFA in July of last year. And he got the win over Carlos Eduardo. He choked him out, ground and pound for Vieira, which kind of adds up a little bit. Ground and pound finish prior to that over Marcus Matos, lost by KO in 25 seconds of debuting Vitor Petrino. So, a lot of punch finishes. This could be a pretty exciting fight for however long it lasts. I just think that Bellato has it's a clear path to kind of victory against Vieira. Take him down and at least tire him out before you start experimenting on the feet. But Bellato's got legit boxing as well, really good power. Looks to be in good shape. I got to watch the open workouts yesterday. Bellato was definitely practicing boxing and transitioning to the takedowns, which doesn't always mean that's what he'll do. But I just think that's the path you take here. So I'm going to take Bellato here. I do like Vieira's distance striking, and his speed advantage in this fight could be really great. I just am, again, not sure if he has cardio at any weight division. So that's my concern.
Yeah, Rodolfo Bellato, he's got 100% finish rate, and he was KO'd in 25 seconds in his one loss. But that 0-0 opponent, Victor Petrino, turned out to actually be really good. Currently, he's 6-0 with 5 knockouts. Just finished Gadzimurad Antigulov on UAE Warriors. And the last 2 fights for Bellato after that have been strong fights. The 5 guys he beat before that one, not super high level competition, but still pretty decent. The last one were pretty good. Picked up a win on Future FC. Then we saw him on LFA 111 last year. Won as a decent sized underdog with a round 1 submission over Carlos Eduardo and looked pretty good there. And we've seen some good grappling out of him. That's kind of the key component of this matchup, I would say. He was taken down in his last fight, scrambled back to his feet, secured a takedown of his own right after. And top game looked good. He's looked good in previous fights there as well. He's a solid jiu-jitsu player, good transitions. It's a funny comment there.
Is Harry Hunsucker cutting to 205? Regis, give us our Harry Hunsucker news. Probably make like 170, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, Bellato, he's got good transitions, damaging ground and pound when he gets his dominant positions, and he's good at getting to the back. Shown to be a submission threat. He has 3 of those so far. Vieira, on the other hand, started off 7-0. Was 0-2 on Brave against some tough opponents. Come back to Brazil, goes 2-0. then fight some more tough guys. So, Hene Pessoa, and he fought a KSW fighter, is defeated by both of those guys, and then returns this year, KOs Carlos Eduardo in the first round. So both of these guys coming off round 1 finishes of Carlos Eduardo. Vieira has a 100% finish rate and also been finished in all 4 of his losses. Was at 170, then 185, now 205. This will be his second fight at this weight class, and he has 10 knockouts, pretty much all in the first round. He's been knocked out in 3 of his 4 losses, submitted in the other one. And he's a good striker, man. I mean, he definitely could come out here and wax Bellato early, but we've just really seen him struggle with that takedown defense in the past. And some of those instances are against very highly skilled grapplers, like Carlston Harris, for example. Like you mentioned, you watched that fight. Harris had a lot of success with the grappling, but we've also seen this type of thing in some of his earlier fights. And before I taped this one, I kind of thought I would want to side with the dog. But Vieira's just a little bit too reckless, I think. And I think, could he find an early finish? Yeah, he could. But I could also just see him overextending and getting taken down. Bellato is the more natural 205er. Vieira's been, as far as 2 weight classes down before. And he's big at those weight classes. He's 6'2", but we've only seen him at this weight class 1 time. He's been finished in all 4 of his losses. And, both these guys have a 100% finish rate and been finished in all their losses. So I seriously doubt this one hits the scorecards. But yeah, if I got to pick a side here, I'm going with Adolfo Bellato in this one.
Yeah, I really like it, especially at this price, minus 145. I think that's a really good price for a very clear path to victory. And again, I'm not trying not to look too much into open workouts, but he was practicing his double over and over and over again to ground and pound. So I just think
exactly what you want to see.
Exactly. Matchup. And just I want to make amends for Regis. He said sorry, he meant for the Vieira Neves winner. What a fight that is. Harry likes McDonald's too much for 205. That's fair enough. That is our Harry Hunsucker news for the day. But yeah, plus 115 on Thiago Vieira. I think that this is a fight I was kind of similar to with you when I had a time looking at this fight before looking at odds and before looking into the fighters, just overviewing them kind of quickly. I was like, I'm kind of signing Vieira right now. And then just looking into it, I do think that there's a pretty clear route to defeat Vieira at this point. And not sold that 205 is going to solve the issue, but either way, we have back-to-back Vieiras also. Not the same, obviously not related, but this is kind of interesting how there's back-to-back Bragas, back-to-back Vieiras, back-to-back everything, apparently. But this is the heavyweight fight of the card here. This one could get ugly, I'll be honest. Andre Vieira against Eduardo Neves. Neither one of these guys going to win any bodybuilding competitions. That's okay. We're in MMA. But these guys are not in tremendous shape, I would say. Particularly Eduardo Neves really does seem to slow down. I think of the 2 of these guys, Andre Vieira is the guy with the better gas tank, the guy who is more technical with his strikes, the guy who is able to kind of pace himself better of the 2 of these guys. Neither guy has faced a whole who's who of competition. One of the fights I watched of Andre Vieira, Andre Vieira was trying to attempt a knee bar on Johnny Samurai, as he goes as a 3-4 opponent, I believe. And Johnny Samurai just put his hands under his chin and started posing.
That's the thumbnail of that video.
Yeah.
I clicked on that. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah. And then he got up and got KO'd a minute later from just sheer exhaustion. I mean, these were the littlest pitter-patter shots from Eduardo at this point. Eduardo was throwing kind of half hammer fist standing. It was ugly. But gets to win. He's only 21, just turning 22 next week, actually. 4-0. He pushes that 265 limit. And I think he could be much further kind of cut down. One of his other wins was against a 3-4 opponent where he got a very, very well-placed elbow that opened up a gash, like a Marvin Eastman gash, and it ended in that fight. For the most part, Eduardo is just, he's going to go in there and kind of throw recklessly for the first couple minutes. If it lands, maybe he puts him away, but I honestly don't think that's going to happen. I think that Vieira is going to just kind of take over as this fight gets further and further along. Vieira throws leg kicks, pretty much Eduardo throws boxing only, maybe occasional head kick, but like not a very striking. Vieira, I think, is going to have better movement. Both these guys 5-0 and 4-0, very untested. But I just think that the way that Vieira is going to approach this fight is much more foolproof, and unless he gets knocked down in the first couple minutes, which Neves hasn't even been able to do against really, really poor competition, like consistently. I think that Andre Vieira takes this over with his kind of Muay Thai style approach, the movement, and if one of these guys takes it to the ground, it would be Vieira, in my opinion. So I'll take Vieira in this spot. Honestly, I think that he may just finish Neves because I don't know if Neves can make it 15 minutes. So maybe kind of exhaustion, but I'll take Vieira, and it's hard for me to pick this type of fight to go to decision. So I'll take the KO.
Yeah, Vieira undefeated at 5-0, and in his last fight, he fought a former Jungle Fight heavyweight champ in Andre Miranda. So that's a pretty good win. The strength of schedule, a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, just 5 fights, some weak opponents, and some solid ones as well. So it's heavyweight. These guys hit hard, and he's no different. He's got power in his hands. Can get a little bit crazy at times and start swinging like really hard, but he does have good killer instinct when he senses an opponent is hurt, and primarily kind of a boxing style attack from what I've seen, mixes in the low kicks kind of sporadically. And he's had some success in the clinch in his last fight, and he's had some success in the clinch in a lot of his fights, really. Had some success on the ground as well. In that last one was able to get some back control as well as some time and full mount. Defensively, the grappling has looked pretty good. He's got a good sprawl, gets to his underhooks pretty well. And yeah, we said it, he doesn't look like the most athletic guy out there, but he actually has pretty decent speed and movement for the weight class. You wouldn't know it just from the physique, but just watching him in there, he does look pretty good. Neves, on the other hand, is also undefeated. He's 4-0. Somebody's always got to go here, and we saw him get a KO in under 1 minute on LFA 111 last time out. I believe he's training at Pitbull Brothers. Hasn't really fought a strong strength of schedule coming into this fight. Does have a 100% finish rate. Still very young at 21. And I believe the Tapology measurements are incorrect. I think he's 6'3" with an 80% reach. And, he's a lot quicker than you'd think he'd be at that size. He wins fights pretty quickly, so there's not a ton of tape. But he does have good power in his hands. Decent head movement when he catches the rhythm. But he has to be on that, right from the jump, because we've seen him before get clipped, get dropped. In his second fight, he got dropped and was able to survive a couple scrambles, get back to the feet. Seen a little bit of grappling out of him. I mean, the wrestling looks okay. The clinch game is decent. Takedown kind of fell into his lap in his pro debut.
Yeah.
You mentioned he was able to land that elbow, which caused the stoppage in the second round, sorry. But we've seen other times where he hasn't really been able to get the control time going, hasn't really been able to secure a position. And this is the first real test for the 21-year-old fighting a legit guy in Vieira, who, is a grown man at 32 in his prime. And Vieira has had a couple weak opponents as well, but I do give him the advantage in the strength of schedule. I think that last fight was a good win against Andre Miranda. And, I picked Neves in his last fight, but this is a spot where I just need to see it to believe it if he's going to be the favorite here. He's still very young, still developing as a fighter. Could he win on Friday? Definitely he could. But we've seen him have some trouble with lower level opponents in the past. He's been able to get through that and get the win, but I think this is going to be a bit of a tougher test. Heavyweights in general, just a little bit more volatile. So Vieira open plus 130 here. The lines come in quite a bit. He's around minus 105 now. I don't know that that's really good enough for me to play, but my lean is going to be the, I guess, even money underdog now in Vieira for this.
Yeah. I agree with you there. And I would have considered it plus money. And at this point, I still honestly would consider it. I'm maybe a little more confident than you in this spot with Vieira. So maybe that's a little bit of false confidence. I will say this, most of my fight tape on Vieira, unfortunately, came from Vieira's YouTube channel, where he puts together like highlight tapes of his fights instead of the whole
a couple
fight.
Of those compilations as well.
So that is the buyer beware here. I will say you got to go with the tape you have in some of these spots, and that was the tape I had on Andre Vieira. So I mean, under 100 views on his highlight tapes. So like me and Lucky are responsible for like 12 of those.
Yeah.
So no problem. I even subscribe to his channel. So, go subscribe to Andre Vieira, everybody. But that's going to do it for that fight. I'm interested in it. But that's the end of the Vieira section. We've had the Braga section. We're on to the Bonfim section of the program here. The Bonfim brothers, I think, are going to be really exciting wherever they end up. I kind of hope they end up together, to be honest. I think it'd be kind of fun to follow them in the same promotion, but we'll see. I think that we're probably seeing close to the end for both these guys with LFA coming up. But Ismael Bonfim taking on Andre Augusto here. And Ismael Bonfim, interestingly enough, was the one who headlined the Friday Brazil card last time they were here. And now he's fighting before his brother, who was an underdog, and fighting on like the middle of the card last time. So kind of interesting they've switched. But Andre Mineiro, he goes by most of the time, or Minaro, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Augusto, 12-2-1. Both these guys are smaller end, 5'7" and 5'8" at lightweight, so more of the compact style. 7 straight wins for Andre. I will say this, the Andre fight I was able to find was from Open Fight Championship against Vladimir Kuzmin Miktian, whoever that is, 9-4 opponent. It was honestly one of the worst fights I've watched this year for tape. It was really, really bad. They leaned against each other for 15 or like 13 minutes. Vladimir went down. He got his back and kind of tapped out. But yeah, it was just like I wasn't super impressed from what I saw Andre. Pretty basic stand up from some of the other fights I've seen. He's which isn't a terrible thing, but I do think against someone like Ismael Bonfim, who has such a good boxing style, former pro boxer himself, a lot of experience, good movement. I think that kind of that basic squared stance is going to be kind of eaten up by Ismael in this fight. With Augusto, he's faced some decent level of opponents. His last 5 out, really his last 6 out, 9-3, 8-2, 7-4, 16-5, 9-4, and 6-1. So definitely he's taken the next step up. Goes to decision for the most part. He does have a few submissions in there as well. I do think the grappling is going to be his best opportunity at this fight. I just think if he goes into this approach similar to that Vladimir, where he's just expecting that cage pressure and leaning, kind of wearing him down is going to work. I think Bonfim's going to be able to circle off that, stay moving, keep the volume going, and really kind of work Andre in this spot. I love Bonfim in this position. I think he's going to be so much quicker, more diverse with his striking, and does have decent takedown defense as well. Really good experience. He's another guy who started 1-2, and now he's gone 15-1 in his last 16. He's on fire right now. He's been on a card. He has not been on a card with his brother before. He was on the card the night before his brother last time. So be interested to see how he handles that, but I don't anticipate that being an issue. I think that we're in for another good night of the Bonfims, and unfortunately not an underdog this time. Ismael Bonfim minus 225, but I understand the price, and I do think that Bonfim, I would probably put him with a Bellato, get a little plus money, double up parlay attempt there, and with his brother as well. But I don't want to get into that pick too much yet. But I love Ismael Bonfim in this spot. I think that his stand-up is really, really crisp. I'll be, interested to see how he deals with bigger lightweights as he moves up further. This is a fellow kind of smaller lightweight, so that's not a concern for me either. All the boxes are for Bonfim here for me.
Yeah, Bonfim 16-3 on 10 straight wins right now, and we did see him in the main event of that LFA 111 card, beat Hangel Desau via decision there, and 2 of his 3 losses were over 10 years ago now. And if we're gonna talk about it, the guy's got 3 losses. One of them's Adriano Moraes, who's a champion in 1FC right now. The other one was Hanato Moicano, and then he has one third one from like 10 years ago that I don't know who the guy is, but 2 out of the 3 are turned out to be really good fighters. He's the lightweight champion federal fight, and he's fought lots at 170 as well. 75% finish rate, 8 KOs, 4 submissions, has been submitted in all 3 losses. And you mentioned he has that boxing background. He was 4-1 as a pro boxer. He was 24-3 as an amateur boxer. So lots of that boxing experience. He's got a heavy right hand, does a good job finding a home for his strikes. There's not a whole lot that he wastes out there. Nice body head, counters. And, he's been praised for his boxing acumen, of course, but he is a pretty solid grappler, too. He's run into trouble with it in the past, but he was extremely young in those losses, and 2 of them have aged extremely well, in my opinion. He's got solid defensive grappling, and we saw that in his last fight in LFA. Has good cardio as well. He'll be able to go hard for 15 minutes. Augusto, on the other hand, is on a 7-fight win streak, so pretty good form coming in here. Open FC lightweight champion in Russia, was the Arena Global featherweight champ in Brazil. Kind of been between featherweight and lightweight for most of his career, whereas Bonfim has been between lightweight and welterweight a lot of the time. Augusto has never been finished yet. I don't think he's going to have the advantage on the feet here. Defensively, I definitely see some openings for Bonfim to land. I'm not sure that Augusto really offers much of a technical threat standing, but does have some decent power. Bonfim, though, never been finished by strikes, has been finished by submission. Augusto's serviceable in the grappling, strong in the clinch when he gets to the underhooks. He's got a pretty stocky build. He's got a low center of gravity. He's able to push guys against the cage. He likes that double leg against the cage when he gets there, tries to get the hands locked. Have seen him struggle a little bit to secure, any real control time on the ground. Defensively looks pretty solid. I'm not really sure how much he's going to have to show any defensive grappling here, but I think Bonfim is going to be more technical. I think he has the advantage on the feet. I think to win this fight, Augusto needs to really make it dirty, try to land some takedowns, get into the clinch, slow it down. But I just think Bonfim is going to be a little bit better on the feet. And if they strike for 3 rounds, I think Bonfim definitely gets this one done. I could see it being back and forth a little bit, but I feel like Bonfim is just going to be the guy getting the better of the striking exchanges. And I think he gets the better of Augusto overall on Friday and gets the win.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think that, I think Ismail's got to be prepared for kind of that cage pressure grappling approach. I think that Andre's going to have trouble getting a hold of him. Yeah, I really do like Ismail here. I tip my hand a little bit for the next one too, which I try not to do, but I can't help it. I love the Bonfim brothers. Honestly, I probably think I don't know. It's hard to say which Bonfim's better. They're different. Ismail, I think, is a little more technical, but Gabriel, I think, might have the bigger potential upside of the 2 of these guys, to be honest. And I think that's why we've kind of seen the switch around on the order of these 2, but it's also a welterweight title fight. Gabriel Bonfim taking on the late replacement in Eduardo Garvan. Unfortunately, the original matchup I was a little more excited about, but I've been able to see a little bit of Eduardo Garvan's fights, including his last fight, which was a really exciting back and forth scrap, bloody affair. And this could be a very, very good fight, actually. So we'll see. Eduardo Garvan making his LFA debut here, known as the Matrix, taking on Gabriel Bonfim, who came on to the scene in his last fight. He was a pretty sizable underdog to Brenner Alberth, which I was all over that during the breakdown too. I believe we talked about it together for that fight. And I think we were both on Gabriel Bonfim in that spot against Brenner Alberth, who was a very good finisher himself. And it was a very undefeated fighter, 2 undefeated fighters going against each other. Gabriel definitely was in trouble at points in that fight. Then that 3rd round just kind of showed the cardio, showed the toughness, and put away his opponent. Really impressive kind of 1-2 combination to put it away. But Matrix Eduardo Garvan, 13-3-1, impressive record here. 2 straight wins. Has not fought since September of last year against Ulitan Lopez. It was a KO in the 2nd round. It was a really fun back and forth fight. He was a 9-4 opponent, but came in very ready down to scrap. He's been in there with Wendell Oliveira, went to a close decision with him back in 2018. Did come up on the short end, but honestly didn't look outclassed in that fight at all to me. Rebounded with Brave FC against a 9-1-1 opponent with a rear naked choke of victory here. So he's well-rounded opponent. Fought on the regional scene for a while, took on Luan Chagas back in the day, who was, I believe Luan was in the UFC, but 13-1 at the time. So he's tested himself. He's lost to most of those higher tests. He lost to Akira Ogono in 2014. That's kind of crazy. It seems like a little bit late to lose to Gano, but, it is what it is. So it does seem that when he takes that next step up in competition, other than the Matthias Juarez fight, does kind of stumble a little bit, but gets in there, looks to scrap. He takes a shot to give a shot. Gabriel Bonfim, kind of similar, honestly. He takes a shot to give a shot. He was in some trouble, as I said, against Brenner Albert in that fight. It was a very good fight, though. But yeah, I mean, Gabriel, similar to his brother, has some boxing experience. I think he is the less technical of the two, as I said, but I do think that he is the more capable finisher of the two also. And with Eduardo, from what I've seen, only gotten to see a few of his fights, but the defensive striking is a little bit of a concern for me. But also Gabriel kind of has that similar type of issue where offensively he puts himself out there and will leave himself open to some shots himself. So, I think this is going to be a closer matchup than a lot of people think. The short notice is a factor for me. With this, Cuomo Otani was originally supposed to have this fight. Carlos Leo would have been really exciting to see that fight. But again, Bonfim might have had a concussion after that fight he had with Brenner. So they did withdraw him. And those were 3-minute rounds also in that fight with Brenner. So where Brenner got him in trouble, it would have been interesting to see how he managed those last couple minutes. So there are a few factors here. I do feel that Gabriel and the hype train's gotten a little bit much for him being an underdog in the last fight. Just got slingshotted here, but I am still going to go with Gabriel Bonfim. I am a little bit nervous about this fight, though. I do think Eduardo Garvan is very capable, especially offensively. I'm curious to see his condition coming into this fight. And short notice sometimes is a disadvantage for the guy who's been preparing for another opponent. So Gabriel, it's short notice for him as well. That's the next factor, but I am going to go with Gabriel here. And I like him to get the finish.
Yeah, Gabriel was supposed to fight for the LFA welterweight championship against Carlos Leal, and he got a KO in round 3 in his first fight of that one. They had the tournament style Grand Prix same night, and had concussion symptoms after, so he wasn't cleared to fight in that championship bout, unfortunately. But we're going to make it up to him now. He gets a shot. Leal's moved on. The belt is once again vacant. Bonfim is 100% finish rate with 8 submissions, 11-0 at 24 years old. And outside of 1 or 2 bouts, not crazy, terrific strength of schedule. His last fight in LFA was probably the toughest one, but he looked really good in that one for the most part. Looked awesome for the first round and then most of the second. Did get clipped and stunned. He was in trouble momentarily there, but he recovered well. Comes out in the third, ends it within the first minute. He is a training partner of Vicente Luque. He comes forward, throws feints, got a pretty snappy jab, and good boxing base, similar to Ismael Bonfim that we talked about earlier. He has a background there. I want to say he was an amateur boxing champion in Brazil. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure I heard that somewhere. He's got fantastic hand speed, good footwork. The diversity of placement on his strikes is quite good as well. And he is also a pretty good grappler. We talk a lot about the striking, but also a serviceable grappler. 8 submissions out of his 11 wins. Got good chops in the jiu-jitsu on offense. Defensively, he's pretty good too. He's a pretty big welterweight. Just hard to secure position against this guy. Also very athletic. Garvan, on the other hand, 13-3-1. And short notice, kinda, for this fight. It was announced, I feel like, a pretty long time ago, but this wasn't the original matchup here. All of Garvan's losses have been to tough opponents. 2 out of 3 of them have been by submission, and he has never been finished by strikes yet. And he finishes opponents about a little over half the time at about a 60% clip. Had a real nice win over Carlos Leal back in 2014. He's got decent stand-up, but I just feel like Bonfim is way slicker, way more technical there. Good grappler, good takedown offense, and he's strong in the clinch as well. He's a high-level fighter. This is a high-level fight in general. Both of these guys are pretty decently sized welterweights, but I think that Bonfim has the advantage standing. I think his jab is just a lot more functional, and I think that's going to be one of his biggest advantages in this fight. I think it's going to be difficult for Garvan to get inside and land combinations. I could see him landing some of those hooks that he likes to throw around the guard, but I just don't know if he can win this fight standing. I mean, Bonfim is dangerous on the ground as well. Should be a great fight. I got Gabriel Bonfim to win and to win the 170-pound belt here.
Yeah, and probably move on to brighter pastures after this fight. Yeah, I feel a little bit better after talking to you about this. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. But yeah, -180 for Gabriel, +150. I'm gonna have to do the Bonfim parlay just because just got to do it. Won't be able to do the Vieira parlay, and won't be able to do the Braga parlay, but I can do the Bonfim parlay. So it's a very good fight. I'm interested to see how both guys show up for this one. And yeah, I guess Garvin did have a little more notice than I realized. I don't know why I thought it was a little more short notice, but it is going to be 5 rounds. These last 2 fights are both 5 rounds, being championship fights. We are on to the main event, and I am so excited for this fight. I want to believe. I want to believe Jonas Billerino is this like mythical striking figure that I'm being sold. I really do. I doubted him in his last fight against Kanan, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter, and he somehow just was able to completely avoid the ground and lull this guy into a striking fight for 3 rounds, which is just insane, and finish him with that wheel kick right to the base of the neck, basically. And I mean, when he finishes fighters, he knows he's finished the fighters. He's very confident striker, and they call him Brazilian Conor McGregor for a reason. That straight left is straight out of Conor McGregor, and it has the same type of effect. It's pretty crazy, and I am not the biggest Conor McGregor fan in the world, but I mean, his striking, if you're going to be compared to someone in striking, there are few guys, I think, in the lower weight classes that you could want to be compared to. I really like, I mean, you just look at him, Brazilian Jesus, Shiva, whatever you call him. He's weird. He's always talking about how he's meditating and all that. He's just, there's something about this guy that is very, very special. And then it shows up on the tape. I mean, he's got some incredibly amazing highlight finishes in the last fight against a legit opponent in Kanan. Taking on a really, really good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner and just good overall MMA fighter in Rafael Barbosa. This is just a really high-level fight. This could easily be on a UFC prelim right now, and I wouldn't have batted an eye at it. I love that we get to see these guys fighting for a title, though. We get to see it over 5 rounds, and I think it's going to be a really good fight. It's very close. Barbosa 14-4, 24 years old, which is crazy to me that he's still so young, and able to get the amount of experience he has. 2 straight wins. Last fought in September with Future MMA. Got the decision over a 10-4 Tarzinho Gomez. Losses to guys like Luis Nogueira by split, and Elizamir and Lima by split. Both those fights extremely close and competitive. Had a really competitive fight with Jamal Emmers, honestly. Jamal Emmers had a real slick transition from a rear naked choke to an arm triangle, and just, I mean, it was sunk in for quite a while before he finally went away. So he's a very tough guy. Good jiu-jitsu in his own right. Had the win over Nate Jennerman with his LFA, were really nice elbows and hammer fists in that one. Beat Cameron Graves, former Fury title holder, good striker there. Good jiu-jitsu, good strikes. I mean, he will throw sneaky kind of elbows as you close the distance. With Bilharinho, it's all about the distance this fight's fought at, though. If this is fought at Bilharinho's distance, I really think he can put on a clinic in this fight and he'll get the finish. I'm a Jonas believer. I was a doubter last time. I picked Kanan. I was really confident in my Kanan pick. And now I'm a believer in Jonas. There's something, and this isn't my most technical breakdown, I get it. There's something special about that guy and his striking, his preparation, his mental game plan, his approach. I really rate Rafael Barbosa very highly, though. I don't think those kind of mental kind of approaches are what's going to win him this fight. I just think he's that good of a striker. I really like the condition Jonas is coming in here. He's going to have a big reach advantage. His takedown defense is very, very good also. And just the composure of Jonas, I think, is going to be a difference. I like a third or fourth round finish after a really good, actually pretty technical affair. I think these two are going to put on. And I think it's mostly going to be on the feet. I don't see Barbosa able to secure the takedowns and get this to the ground. Jonas isn't going to attempt the takedown. I think it's going to be on the feet, and it's about distance and patience, I think, a lot. And I rate Jonas very highly in those. So I got Jonas on this one, and I got him with a finish in the fourth round, I'll say a championship finish.
Yeah, man, main event time. 145-pound belt on the line. This should be a good fight. We got Jonas Billerino here. First round combat featherweight champ. He was the Jungle Fight featherweight champ as well. Did lose that title in 2016. And he was supposed to fight for the LFA title in 2020 versus Justin Gonzalez, who's now signed to Bellator. That event was unfortunately canceled. Then we saw him against Kanan Kawhi in Dana White's Contender Series. Got a round 3 wheel kick KO. Really nice knockout. But perhaps the most famous part of that fight, we also had the double nut shot. So a little piece of MMA history right there. But yeah, Jonas is 9-1-1. He's got an 89% finish rate. He's a really dangerous guy. He's a slick striker. He's dynamic. He's got 7 knockouts as a pro. And he's got really long arms at 145 with a 75.5-inch reach. Good footwork. He's got good kicks and nice, easy power on the feet. You never really feel like he has to throw too hard to get a good pop on his striking. And he doesn't really mind being backed up and fighting off the back foot. You know, he will sacrifice that cage control. He'll sacrifice that forward movement to keep this fight at range. Really confident on the feet. Sometimes, you know, you kind of find yourself asking him for just a little bit more output. Can fall kind of in love with the counters a little bit and just doesn't create as much offense on his own at times. But those counters definitely score when they land, man. I mean, he has great hand speed, and sometimes you just want him to extend that attack past 1 or 2 shots. But it's definitely an area where he could do that. His jab is really quick. His head movement is good. He's able to roll with the punches very well on defense. We've seen him get pushed against the cage, but he is a really tough guy to get down, actually. You know, Kawhi had 3 attempts, didn't land any. He was so close 2 times, but Billarino was able to post with that right hand and stay up. Did a good job with his defensive grappling. You know, he's pretty quick. He's pretty big at the weight class. He's muscular as well. He's lean, but very solid. Barbosa is 14-4 on 2 straight wins right now. This is going to be his 4th appearance on LFA, and he made his debut for the promotion as a 10-1 prospect at the age of 21. Defeated Cameron Graves and Nate Jennerman. And that's 2 really strong wins in the regional circuit right there. You know, he was supposed to fight for a couple different regional 145-pound belts. Pat Sabatini on CFFC. That fight fell through. Tyler Diamond for the LFA 145-pound belt. That event was canceled. He had the loss to Jamal Emmers on LFA. Had the loss to Elismar Lima. And those are 2 pretty solid fighters there. I'm not really too bothered by that. He's back in the mix for another regional title here in a strong organization. He's going to need to watch out for that counter-striking, I think. I see Barbosa kind of initiating a lot of the exchanges here, at least early on. This guy's not afraid to go first, and he is quite composed in there. I like the way he's in and out of the pocket, tries to land 2 or 3 shots, as opposed to Jonas, who's kind of looking to land 1 or 2. Barbosa's got good movement. He's quick. I like the way that he's able to set traps. He'll feint to the body and throw to the head. Facing a southpaw here, and he does have a nice check right hook that could be very serviceable in this matchup against a southpaw striker. Pretty good MMA stand-up. Doesn't really utilize the jab as much as I feel like he should to keep the distance at times. Billarino is a bit more unorthodox than Barbosa is. Utilizes a bit more kicks. Not as much volume, but I'd say a bit more power. This is a really good matchup, man. This is definitely a worthy title fight. I like what I see from Barbosa, but I got to go with Jonas Billarino.
Hey.
Yeah, I think Barbosa is going to strike with Billarino, and he already doesn't have the best distant management from what I've been able to see. I would kind of like to see him utilize a jab or a front kick a little bit more to keep range, and he's facing a really good counter striker here who's going to have a reach advantage. I think Billarino hits a little harder. I think he's a little more dangerous. I think Barbosa is going to come forward and try to get inside, but I just see Billarino getting the better of those moments. Billarino is a guy who finishes almost everyone he fights with a knockout, and Barbosa has never been finished by strikes. So interesting to note there. Jonas opened up minus 300. I was pretty shocked at that. I saw him as being a slight favorite. Down now, I was seeing like minus 115, minus 125. I think that's a more accurate representation. I think this is a really close fight, but I'm going with Jonas Billarino on this one.
Yeah, I had no idea Jonas was a minus 300, but that's crazy. I think minus 125, though, I really do. I think that's spot on. I think he's a slight favorite here. I think the reason he wasn't signed to the UFC were, correct reasons. It's the volume. You got to see that volume a little more. I mean, the thing to consider is that there will be a crowd for this fight. There was not a crowd for his Contender Series fight. And I do think that with guys like Jonas, sometimes they can just get into a zone where when they don't have that extra boost of maybe observers, it turns into a little bit of a technical sparring, demonstration in a way. And that's just kind of my opinion. I've seen it a few times, sometimes where these fighters kind of get into these, almost looks like a sparring match where you don't see that quite as much in front. So I'm curious for sure there. I'm a believer, -125. I like the price as well. But, I think it's kind of interesting because if Jonas would have gotten signed to the UFC, he's probably fighting someone worse than Barboza. And now he's this is a much tougher test than I think who he would have been fighting for his UFC debut, which would have been someone like a Matt Sales or something, not to throw, but I would take I think Barboza is a much tougher test. Crazy he was ever -300. I had no idea it got that high.
That was the opener.
I guess that was just a little test to see but yeah, I think this is a pick 'em. I'm also going with Jonas, and I think that he's going to improve on that volume a little bit. And if he doesn't, I do think the volume of Barboza could work against him also. So really, really good main card here. Watch the whole LFA card, though, for sure. Check out Lucky Locks Picks channel as well if you're not already subscribed over there. I've said it a million times, it's a broken record, but I listen to his videos every time I'm making my final bets. They're a really good, succinct way to get a lot of the information we need to expand on here. So 57 minutes here, while it's a 14-minute video there. So, really great work over there. But yeah, that's going to do it for the LFA 126 Brazil breakdown. Definitely appreciate the support. Norton MMA, one of the best channels out there as well. Go check out. He just had a MMA show with some guy named Dan Hardy yesterday. So no big deal there. Visceral, my unofficial third co-host, UFC breakdown today at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Josh Byers as well as Lewis of Norton MMA. So I'll see you guys in 5.5 hours for the UFC Vegas 50 breakdown show. It's a sleeper of a card, and Jillian Robertson's fighting, so one of the picks already. But tune in for the rest of them. For Aaron, for Lucky Locks, have a good one, everybody. Keep taking care of each other out there. Peace out.